Hello, everybody. I am so excited and honored to have Abbi Head from Little PR Marketing with us today. I met Abbi, I don't know, somewhere in the dark hours of lockdown. And I think it was just before Little PR Marketing found its feet. Abbi is a creative. She has got a graphic design background. She's a co-author. I was just looking at Abbi's LinkedIn profile of some really interesting books, including Revival, Women Embracing Their Superpower, When Grace Found Me, I Am a Woman Who, public speaking is in her kind of repertoire. So yeah, Abbi is amazing. And I'm so glad that
too kind.
you could join us and share a little bit about what you do. It's very interesting because you say that this is what you didn't learn at university. So we spend so much time learning things, but we don't always learn the details of how we're going to make our businesses work. And Abbi's going to share a little bit about business planning for creatives with us. Abbi, over to you.
Oh, thank you very much. Hello, ladies. Yes, as Michelle said, my name is Abbi and I am Little PR Rock Marketing. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about business planning and how actually being creative could be a bit of a superpower in business planning. Because if you're anything like me, you think in a very creative way. And sometimes we tell ourselves that we're not going to understand the logical stuff because something as complicated as a business plan is going to be something that is just too difficult. It's out of our grasp. And so actually, why bother with it at all? Because you're not going to be seeking an investor and you probably aren't looking for a bank loan. But the thing is, I felt the same. And so what I decided to do was think of myself as the investor in my business. And then I started to go through the process of looking at business planning. And that really helped me because as creative thinkers, whether it's our profession or our pastime, it is very important to understand, what we're doing with our business or whether we have a business. And our creativity is a very mindful process. And sometimes it can really help us to tackle more complex things as well, some of the concepts. And that includes business planning. So as a sort of background to me, I started Little PR Rock Marketing as a different business name back in September 2020. And it was actually because I'd gone through this process and it was in the middle of the pandemic, it actually helped me to springboard that business to which now at the end of last year, I was able to come into my own. I'm now fully in the business. And now I have an image of a business that I want to scale up, which is great. So I think about the business planning as a challenge. It's a really big challenge. And I actually think about it as an art project, which makes me say, well, what does that look like? What does it look like? And so when I started in business in 2018, I had a jewelry business. I still do have a jewelry business, but I didn't have a strategy. I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't have a business plan for sure. And I really had to learn things the sort of hard way. And I don't want that for you. I don't want that for other people who are creative. So as was said, I went to university and I came out as a qualified graphic designer, and I ended up leaving university and I was working in cafes and temporary administration jobs. And it took a long time before I ended up finding a role as a media officer at a charity. I did that for 10 years. I did 2 years in admin and then 10 years as a media officer working in the PR and communications department at a charity. And so I think when I left university, I didn't have any confidence. And when I look back, that was probably because it wasn't because I didn't have the skill set and the creativity. What I didn't have was any kind of business acumen. And so I didn't know how to use those skills to make money. And so at university, I did not learn anything about how to have a business mindset or how to plan a business. And so I was volunteering at galleries for a period of time. And I thought, you know what? you know, I need to eat, I need to make money, I need to have something that's going to give me a return so that I can actually have a life that, you know, that I deserve. So when I went through this process of creating this, you know, sort of creative business plan, I realized that, you know, it was something perhaps that I would have liked to have learned at university, or at least when I started in business.
They burnt. Thanks, love.
And so it includes all the information that I would have wanted to have known when I first started in business, in jewelry. And so I created a course called Creative Business Planning for Creative Thinkers. And it's really a next step for people who are creative, who want to think about having a business and they don't know anything about business planning. And it's 3 years of me sort of building that knowledge base so that I can then give back and that get people to be motivated and inspired to be able to grasp some of those, you know, sort of those concepts that can be very overwhelming. So there are formal business plans, and I will show you what I was presented when I first came into business. And you might look at it as exactly as I did and think, oh goodness. So we're looking at what's called a business model canvas. And to be honest, I actually thought, where am I going to fit it all in? What does it look like? What's a value proposition? Well, what do you mean a revenue stream? What on earth is all this stuff? And I'm never going to get it. And it actually, I think it gave me a little bit of form rage, and it also gave me a little bit of like overwhelm. And so basically, I just thought I was going to quit. I thought this is absolutely ridiculous. And so now I'm looking at it from a very different perspective and using my creativity to take away that sort of business plan boredom, really, because if you're not going to enjoy something, you're not going to be doing it again. So it doesn't really matter what kind of creative that you are, because actually having and using your creativity to understand those processes is something that can propel you forward. So I don't want to get too sort of ingrained in showing you exactly what I do, because that's very prescriptive. I mean, you know, a graphic designer, I'll show at the end a glimpse of what I've done and how I would love to shrink that down and stick it on there. So no, it doesn't matter what kind of business that you're in. What matters is that you're taking that first stepping stone. And it's for people who are at the beginning of their journey, as I said. And once you become more fluent in the language and what it means and all of that sort of stuff, who knows, there may be a point when you are in a position to get to the next step where you are looking for maybe some investment or something to scale up your business. So as I said, you know, the reality is if it's fun, you will revisit it. And I think of art projects. I remember being at university and they asked us to do a project on the stock exchange. And the first thing we all went was like, oh, yeah, great. And then when they said, well, yeah, but what does that look like? We're like, oh, I don't know. That could be quite interesting. So that's the inspiration of obviously looking through and going through this sort of process. And so that's why I had this course designed for people, you know, and hopefully, you know, it's a position to give back, really, because it's something that I would have wanted to have known. So the first thing I wanted to say was that really the research is so important. And I always thought of market research as like somebody with a clipboard and some questions, and actually research can be really important. And if you're doing a creative project, you do research because you're looking at the end product and you're thinking, what's it going to look like? And I mean, that could be in any way. It doesn't have to be like in a graphics way like I do. I mean, it could be any kind of format. You know, it could be any kind of photography or any kind of, you know, you could do it ceramics. I'm thinking of, you know, some of the people that do some incredible stuff. And it's whatever is the way that you mindfully go through something and process it and actually look at it at the end and go, well, actually, that's uniquely my business. So as I said, the research is important because it will tell you if you have a business. It will tell you if you have customers for your business. It will tell you what price to market things in your business and your competition as well. And it's something that, you know, it'll tell you as well when you're researching about what's happening in your industry and what's affecting your business and the reputation, what people are saying about your business as well. So yes, absolutely. Researching can be incredibly important all along the way. And actually, it gives you a very robust perspective of what you're doing. And so actually a business plan in that respect will help you to understand, what your business is, where it is now, and also how to tell other people about what you're doing and where it's going as well. The thing is, here's the fun thing. I think about sometimes going on Dragon's Den. I don't know about anybody else, but I do watch the program. Sometimes I cringe. And I think, actually, if I was stood there and I could visualize what I was doing with my little photographic memory, I would probably be able to relate it better and feel more confident about it, rather than thinking about those forms and numbers and stuff like that. So as I promised, I said I'd show you something that I was working on. It's a work in progress, and it's definitely, it's not rocket science what I've done, but I do love collage. And so my customer profile looks very different. So I kind of, almost like a vision board, kind of throw things together. And as I said, it doesn't have to be graphically done. I mean, that's sort of like some images and some graphics. And I'm sure you've got lots of ideas that you could do in your own way to be able to do things. But really, when I think of my customer now, I think of an image, I think of the way that it looks, and I think about how I can relate that. So that's what I wanted to say about my own business plan. But actually, if I gave you the heads up about the content of the business plan, that's really the modules of the course. And this is the bit that's really the nub of it, actually. So the elements and also the modules of the course that I've done are, for example, the first thing is what is the basis for your business? What is the basis? And research that like an artist. And the second thing is, what is your idea? What is your idea, and is it really a business? And what is the vision for it as well? What do you want it to be? Where do you want to go with it? Do you want to scale it up? What do you want to do? And then the next thing is your competition. How will you master your competition? Competition is really important because you need to stand out as one of a kind. We often hear this USP. What is that? What does it look like for you? And then the next thing is probably sort of like the more formal stuff that they include, like, they call it a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What do they look like? What are the pros and cons? And don't think of it like, what are my weaknesses and threats? What are you going to do? How are you going to find the information that you need to get over those things? See it as a launch pad to springboard ideas. And then the next one is the boring one, I guess, the cash flow. What does cash flow mean? What does it mean to you? How does it look? And there's all sorts of images, that you can have idioms are great for cash flow. The way that we think about, visualizing the way that we look at our monies, like we think about bringing home the bacon or penny pinching, or there's so many, if you actually look at idioms, there's so many different idioms for visualizing money. And then the next one is making the legal stuff really more attractive and easier to understand. And I don't know about you, but I mean, I'm going through contracts and stuff at the moment, and I'm thinking, gosh, this is really tough. But actually, that the GDPR, all of those things are absolutely crucial to what we do. And then I guess for me, and I would say this because I'm a little PR up marketing, the marketing is the fun bit. What is your message? How are you going to brand yourself, and how do you own that online presence? And one of the things I think is really important in being your brand is actually being your brand. Your personal brand is so important, and it can really help you. So the last thing which people forget about, and especially when we work on our own as artists and creatives, is who is helping you. Who are your suppliers? Who are you working with? I mean, I'm sort of collaborating with people now, and I just think, actually, I need to include all of that in what I'm doing. So they're really sort of like the top areas of the business plan, and they relate back to those elements. And so that's what I wanted to sort of give you the inspiration for. And some of the action steps that I think I would probably recommend is really just ask yourself what you want to achieve as a creative. Do you want a business that's scaling up, or do you want to, sort of an enjoyable business that you can sort of manage yourself? Do you have a deadline for what you want in the future? So for me, I've just left work. So now my deadline is to make money to be able to pay the bills. So that's pretty much a deadline for me. We're on Project Tim retirement and house buying. So that's pretty much a deadline for me. And then also as well, and I'm always very optimistic, have you got the right tools? Have you got the right tools to do what you want to do? And sometimes I mean, I don't think that I can't do certain things. I just think that because I'm images and pictures, that it's not as quick for me to work things out. So I don't give up on myself. I just sometimes think that maybe somebody could do twice as much as me in the hour, and I would only do it like for 3 hours. And maybe I need to source that out as I'm developing. And so those next steps, you might be feeling creative now or want to look into things, what are your next steps that you're going to take? And I think one of the hardest things in any kind of business things is to stay focused. How are you going to make yourself accountable? How are you going to, constantly make it in a way that you're going to revisit it again and again? And I certainly, when I put the course together and when I've been doing this sort of training to do this talk, I'm actually thinking, actually, I need to tweak this and make that. And so the intention really is to make it a fun process. And so how are you going to bring it all together? How are you going to bring it all together? And what kind of, it doesn't have to be one finished thing. Mine is 9 different things and it's ended up as a sort of graphic piece or whatever. You could do a video. I love a storyboard. I love the idea of an animation. But yeah, so that's the thing. And who knows, in the future, maybe there will be investors who like a visual business plan. Who knows? But we're not there yet. So I'm not going to promise anything. And so that's it really. And I've got a course, which I have got a course, and the reason I have one is because I joined the Self-Education Revolution, and that is part of Tony Robbins and Dean's process. And the reason for that is because, I mean, I went to university, as I said, but I didn't learn business planning. There are people who can't afford to go to university, and those people, there are courses on mastermind.com, which are people from all over the world who want to give their knowledge. Basically, it's an education of knowledge that everyday people that they have that they want to offer to people, very much like Udemy or the other ones as well. And I realized when I went through the Tony Robbins process that I went through the Dickens process. So I went through the Dickens process and I realized that I needed to leave work. That was the impetus for me. That was the thing that changed and flipped the switch for me. And I realized I wanted to be in business. So I'm now, again, I'm studying again my PR diploma, and I'm starting to outsource. And that has really made me realize that instead of like working for myself, although I think it's very important to know all the elements of your business, I'm working with a girl who's a designer, but yes, I know what she's doing. So I'm not going to overload her in a certain way because I know how she feels and what she's doing. And, I'm working with a copywriter and it's wonderful because she's very creative and we springboard off each other. And those collaborations are crucial. So that's made business planning less daunting for me. And I've actually started creating vision boards and stuff, which I've not done for a long time. And so basically that's the process. And so I'd look at what I'm doing now. I'm scaling up with the NatWest Accelerator. I've definitely I've applied. So hopefully, who knows? And I am processing and slowly going through from where I was to, I would say, sort of like 2/3 of the way there to do the sort of more professional stuff. And that's where I think it's important to start somewhere. So these are my details, which people always share. So I need to quickly go on there and share the screen. And so, yes, this is, bear with, there we go. So that's me. And you can find me on LinkedIn. I tend to hang out on there. And it is a lot of fun. Eventually, once you crack the code sort of thing, it's a lot of fun. So that's what I wanted to share with you, give you some inspiration. You are always welcome to connect with me or, start with the course. I will be completely transparent. They're having a glitch on the course. They've just updated and taken some new people in. And a lady who's trialing for me said, I can't get in. So if you want to know more, keep in touch and I will let you know when they sort that out. So that's all I wanted to say.